be talking about the July 4th, 2022 Pinwheel Experiment. Now, this will be the culmination of an experimental series. So here's that blink activation history from April to the present. You'll notice we had having a pretty good success, high rate 64. Then May the 12th, we had a high of 114 with a previous high from the March the 17th. Then you'll notice it's sporadic, but some successful. And then the present session, there'll be 0 activations, and you'll see a kind of chaotic situation. In other words, the pinwheel was turning, but the blink camera was not activating. And then in this session, we introduced a second blink camera, and that seems to have thrown somewhat of a monkey wrench into my methodology. I'm unclear how to evaluate what the results of this are, and we'll just have to see how that turns out. But this will be the end of this experimental series where we're basing the evaluation on one blink camera. So here's a field observation that occurred before this session. My grandchild and a wife enter the room, and I just want to show you what happens if someone just pushes the door open rapidly. There's a grandchild. And then starts turning around. Look, Alice also turns.
You're going to sit nicely? I do.
The blink camera is activated and seems to be functioning properly. That's what this illustrates. So here I'm setting it up for the Thursday experiment. I'm setting up the new blink camera, which I want to focus on Alice inside the container here. And the ice bucket is open at the top. This occurs at 11 in the morning, and so it shows my movement activates the camera. The camera seems to be functioning properly. So here's a video on Tuesday, July the 12th. My presence agitates the air. See lefty turning. And then both the cameras are activated at 11:02 previous to this session. So here's the blink camera settings. The old blink camera is still set on 25 seconds, has a sensitivity of 6. Clip length is 25, so that means it'll run for 25 seconds. New blink camera has a sensitivity of 2. It's more sensitive because we seem to have trouble seeing through this glass. There seems to be that function. So here's the new blink camera. Here's a first blink camera, which looks at all 3 videos. And it turns out that this camera sometimes is activated when lefty turns, so there's a methodological problem with this present setup, but we didn't realize it. I did not realize that at the time. So Tuesday, this is the end of the setup. On Tuesday, these 2 cameras will list. I enter the room, and that activates the cameras. Entering the room. Motion, see the mirror sees my image. The mirror caught my image and then activated the camera, but both cameras seem to be activating properly. Wednesday, July the 13th, I place a thermometer in the outside monitor. Here's the outside monitor in the window. So you see, we're seeing an introduction of new technology, and according to Bachelor's theory, that can be disruptive, and it did turn out to be pretty disruptive. This is all this behavior, this activity is going on in previous to our last Thursday session before I leave for Scotland. I'll be in Scotland for about 6 weeks or so, but it keeps track of the outdoor temperature. Right now it's 79, indoor temperature 75. Okay, this is in position. Now when the sun is shining in the morning, sometimes it'll be shining directly on this thermometer, and so that gives it a false reading. It gets pretty hot, sometimes over 100 degrees. This is the position. There's the outdoor thermometer out there in the blinds. So the previous week there's only one activation. Let's look at it. It occurred on Monday, July the 11th, 1908. Lefty's turning 3/4 of a turn. So we have a relatively low level of activation. Right now it's unknown exactly the correspondence between the activity before the session and the activity during the session, to the degree those two figures are correlated, but I'm going to be working on that with this body of data. So after the thermometer was in place, I activated the new blink camera because it didn't activate on its own. Let's look at it, see what it looks like. Alice shows a slight 1/4 turn because I was active in the room previously. So it seems like the old and new cameras are functioning properly, as far as I can tell. We are having some activity here. Weather on the day of the experiment, July the 14th. It's 83 degrees at 7 p.m. outside. So here I'm documenting setting up the cell phone camera. Here I looked at 6:28 and documented that the pinwheels were still. And at 6:55, 18:55, I'm setting up the cell phone camera. Here's a video of it. And it agitates lefty. Outside temperature's 85, inside 77, according to that's what these readings indicate. So after this session, I would go back and use a zoom system, knocking on the door. Pinwheels were still. Check again at 7:10, pinwheels were still. Then later on I'll show another slide at 7:11, the pinwheels are still. This agitation, whenever I enter the room, has always been observed to be somewhat limited, and then when I look back, the pinwheels are still. So here's with the new blink camera, looking through the new blink camera and activate it. Pinwheels are still. So more checks, zoom control, pinwheels are still here at 7:12, 7:14. They're still during a feedback experiment. That's when I can, by putting in my hearing aid, which is connected to the cell phone, it creates a feedback loop and makes a chirping sound. In the past we found that seemed to stimulate this pinwheels turning, and you may see that in this experiment. Here at 7:20, we have a feedback experiment. Let's look at it. I'm going to get to stimulate the chirping. Now I found I can stimulate the chirping using my hearing aid. I didn't see my hearing aid in my ear, so it looks like I'm
Hey, pinwheels.
I'm trying just to do it with audio. There you go. And we have the chirping and we have some turning. And see that experiment, in the early days of this chirping type experiment, it seems like it was a successful method for getting turning. Now later on I changed my mind about that. Here's a zoom recording. That means that I'm using the cell phone camera that I have in the room and the zoom system. And I get the chirping going on. And here's Alice doing a full turn. And Lefty doing a quarter turn clockwise and then reversing slightly. So the 54 second time period. 25-second half turn should be enough to activate the blink cameras. But that did not occur in this case. But this turn might not have been fast enough to activate the camera, so we'll assume that it was not fast enough because the blink cameras were not activated. I took careful session notes. We talked about Keith Linder. He has poltergeists in his house out in Seattle, kind of demonic things that were talked about inviting him for a guest visit. And we talked about our schedule during my Scotland hike. We couldn't actually do pinwheel experiments. We're going to mail the rocks. Boris is going to mail the rocks to Heather. And that turned out not to work. They were lost in the They weren't lost in the mail, they were crushed in the mail, and the package was severely damaged, and they returned them to Boris. Then at 1940, Lefty turned, but it wasn't enough to trigger the camera. Heather told about her dream mentor. Okay, we looked up a special book. Lefty turned strongly multiple times, but the camera did not activate. It was a very unusual session. We had a lot of turns and a chaotic situation. I was thrown out. I had to continually, I was kicked out of the session and had to switch off my Zoom activity and turn it back on again and again. So here's our attempts to document with the Zoom camera. And the first time I said it was
okay, Lefty. Okay, Lefty.
Here's 2006.
Hey, Lefty. Lefty. Forward.
Freak me out.
Forward, Lefty. Melanie. Okay, Lefty. Report.
Now you'll see I have to blank out a lot of sections out of this video
Lefty.
because
Report. Report, Lefty. Well, at least a full turn.
we have to protect confidentiality.
I don't think the camera's activated. Okay, enough of that.
And so we'll look at this again, but you'll see a fragmented situation, but it's as if it could be that the phenomena is hiding among this chaotic situation. Because the first time I've created a video for this experiment, the activity of trying to blot out all those images concealed the fact that there was turning going on. It's as if the phenomena is hiding among all that struggle. So here's further notes. Heather divided events at her store where she felt there's negative energy, and Lefty did very, very strong turns, but perhaps too slowly. The blink camera didn't activate. Melanie told another story. Both Lefty and Alice turned, but the blink cameras did not activate. Software kicked me out of the session again and again. Every 10 seconds we tried restarting the whole meeting. That didn't solve the problem. The problem became chronic. We did experiments using the Zoom system. Lefty was active but showed hiding quality. It was a struggle, and the net result was that we got 0 blink activations. So that's the way I counted it, even though there's a lot of pinwheel movement. Here's another feedback experiment. 2140.
Hey, come on, pinwheels.
It seems as if it's stimulating the turning because you start the tripping and then the pinwheel starts turning, but not very fast.
Make yourself hold. Make yourself hold. Turn around or do something else. Keep out of the group. Make yourself
Talk to it.
So there's Alice turning
Turn around, my
inside
friend.
the container.
If you did
There
not
goes Alice. There goes Alice.
through the meeting.
Come on, Alice. Come on, Alice.
So
Turn around.
that's something lateral.
Come on, Alice.
Because Lefty should be turning
You
to
know.
the lateral rim. A normal explanation might say there's some kind of heat convection going on.
You know, this Keith Linder, he has all kinds of banging the time, and he's got all this stuff. But that's what, see, we don't have any demons, you see? That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm joking about how we don't, whatever our
You
phenomenon
don't
is,
want
isn't
to
very
have
strong,
demons
and it's not
in
very
our-
consistent.
But you know, you have all those priests come in and do all kinds of exorcisms, and people do this and that, but none of that works. It's just not like these days.
We joke a little bit about
Let's
demons.
have
If we had
some here.
demons,
Okay.
it'd be a lot, get a little bit more in our house. Boris is going to talk about
At least
spoons in his mouth, eating food.
these days, spoons and forks bend very, more often than usual. At these days, when I use them, when I put it in my mouth and pick up food, especially spoons bend in my mouth. When I pick them up the first time before I start to eat, when I start to eat, they are perfectly normal and nothing special about them. And with every bite I take or every spoon I put in my mouth, the spoon bends more and more. And after I'm done with eating, the spoon is totally bent. It's to a point where it's nearly no more usable. That's what I recognize in the like a few days, since a few days. Spoons and forks seem to bend. I think when I have it in my mouth, those things bend. Pretty much. That's nothing new to me, but happens very often since a few days.
So he's telling about something that's happened this past week, where he picks up the food, he puts the food in his mouth, and then the spoon or fork bends right in his mouth. He takes it out, then he sees that it's bent, and it's sometimes to such a degree that it's no longer usable. And here he's talking about his cell phone making unexpected calls. This is also something that occurred this past week.
My phone did make phone calls, but not very often. I think since we talked last time, about 5 to 7 phone calls, but always to people where it's no problem, not to my boss or something.
That's good.
Yeah.
How are you going to explain that one?
But yeah. Why are you calling me? I don't know. And it's normally my phone calls, my wife, my sons, my daughter,
He
and
says he
people
makes phone
I'm
calls to his wife, his son, his daughter.
where it's no problem when they
So it's not
have
really a
calls
problem.
from me. I didn't intend to make.
Hey, Pinwheel, see, it's turning. It's turning while you tell that story. Hey, Pinwheel,
Yeah.
we're trying to record Pinwheel. Oh, man, I can't get it to record.
Pinwheel, turn around.
Come on, you're turning. We want to get it on camera. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, at least this time, the Pinwheel has been reacting to what we've been saying very strongly. It just doesn't turn fast enough to record it. So,
So I'm saying it's reacting what we're saying, but it's not turning fast enough to record it. Seems to be the problem, and that's been the whole problem this whole session. Here's another final act.
Turning and not turning.
There you go.
uh-oh.
So that's a pretty strong turn you would expect
All right.
for an
So,
activation.
it's recording right now. Oh, good, it's turning. Okay. Okay. This make a lefty. There we
One
go.
half a turn in 17 seconds.
Oh, it's amazing. That's what it did. That's what it was
So
doing
I
a
have to
long
blot
time
out
ago.
the sections.
You know, it was always stopping
It
when we
seems to
looked at it.
disturb the
It's
film. You can't watch
it's
it
going. Now it's
closely enough.
okay.
Mhm.
Come on, let's look at it. Come on. No,
Yeah.
stop. It's not as fast.
Well, Alice is moving a little bit.
Yeah, we saw Alice turn back there.
Or did she let? No, maybe not. Not now.
Now, when you look at it, it stops.
Yeah.
You look at it, and it stops. You try and record. Okay, there, it's going.
Look at it,
It's
and
you can see it
stops
turning.
again and
You see
again.
it turning. But it's not turning very fast. Not
Nope.
fast. So this is a pretty astonishing session. The thing turned an awful lot during the session, but never fast enough to activate the blink camera. And it tried kicking me out all again and
Oh
again.
my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And closing, and I had to close down the whole meeting, start over, but that did not fix the problem.
Nope.
So now the camera's aimed at it, but it's not.
No turning.
Okay, well, let's shut this off.
So it's been our experience the phenomena
Can't
has
shut
a
it off.
strange kind of hiding
I can't.
quality.
Because I can't get to the, here we go.
And we don't really capture the turning. So the blink cameras were operating properly before the experiment began. The pinwheels turned, but they were not fast enough to activate the cameras. Now, there were times where they were fast enough and the camera should have activated, but they didn't. The system's repeated attempts to shut down were unusual. Kind of a strange situation, a strange session. And here's hypotheses about the hiding effect. Paranormal phenomena seem to hide behind the possibility of artifact. That's Bachelor's hypothesis, and it's supported by research, and certainly our research supports that argument. Paranormal phenomena do not manifest when there's absolutely no possibility of artifact. That's Bachelor's hypothesis, and that's our. We haven't eliminated artifacts, so perhaps that's why we've gotten some results. Then, when there's possibilities for artifact, the phenomena can manifest in ways that exceed the artifact explanation. And Eric Dellon's research supports this argument. So our argument is that paranormal phenomena have hiding qualities. They hide behind the artifact explanations. In our experiment with the open-mouth plastic container, that coincides with these hypotheses. The pinwheels turn, but not fast enough to document full documentation. It just generates disturbances, for example, or turns off the system, or there's a disruption of some strange sort. So now that I'm finished this, I'll try to re-edit these videos so you can see the pinwheel turning better than last time. But still, I don't think this will prove beyond doubt anything one way or the other. But we just keep doing these experiments and generating evidence, information to the best of our ability.